Give it about another minute, Gordon, you think?
We do have a quorum, so whenever you're ready to get started, it looks like most people are here.
Okay. Well, let's jump into it then, because I think we've got another pretty full agenda. So, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the MAG Standards and Details Specifications Details Committee, August 4th. Call to order, call to the audience, I guess, to attend a meeting by technological means. Members of the public may either access the link to watch the video stream on the MAG website by clicking the view and listen link provided under the related links section at www.azmag.gov/event/27101, or members of the public may submit written comments relating to this meeting to www.azmag.gov/comment within 1 hour of the posted start time for the meeting. Did we get any comments? Or
I did not receive any comments in advance, no.
okay. Then moving on, item number 3, approval of the July 7th meeting minutes. If you haven't, take a minute or so and look through the minutes, July 7th minutes, and see if there's any issues that you want to address.
Move that we approve the minutes.
Thank you, Alan. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dan. So with that, minutes are approved. I guess we need a vote first, huh?
Yeah.
I almost messed that one up.
Let me switch to the sheet here. Okay.
Okay, so we'll go through this. So, City of Avondale? Not present yet. City of Buckeye is a yes.
Oh, Craig, what are we voting on?
Oh, this is just minutes. Sorry.
Oh, yes.
Okay, again, Buckeye's yes. Chandler, Paul?
Yes.
Okay, Gilbert?
Yeah.
Glendale?
Yes.
Goodyear?
Yes.
Maricopa County? Not present. Mesa? Is Carl here?
I think Carl is on. He could be muted.
Carl, are you on the call?
I'm okay with the minutes. This is Carl, Maricopa County. Sorry about that.
Oh, thank you, Carl. Thank you, Carl. Mesa?
Mesa's a yes.
Thank you. Peoria?
Yes.
Phoenix?
Al Smolka, yes.
Thank you, Alan. Scottsdale? Roy, are you on the call? I thought I saw him. See if I can go back to Roy. Dave Mobley, surprise.
Yes.
Thank you. Tim P?
Yes.
Youngtown? Not present. Roy Harrington, Scottsdale, are you out there? It's not. Well, with that, the yeses pass. So that means meeting minutes are good to go. So moving on, item number 4, to the staff report. Do you want to start this out, Gordon?
Sure. The first thing, I wanted to get some idea from the members, some of their preferences as to meetings coming up next year and working group meetings as well. MAG has started in-person meetings again. They're mostly the policy committees, like a regional council, management committee, and so on. But if the regular committee wants to begin meeting in-person meetings, the goal is to be able to still have in-person meetings, allow call-ins still using the Zoom during the meeting, and be able to kind of socially separate a little bit while we're in the meeting rooms. I know we talked for this year, our committee just meeting virtually again next month and just thinking about this for next year. But since we are starting this up again, you may want to start thinking about it. And I wanted to get feedback. And if you don't want to say anything right now, you can email me or Craig. But some committees have decided that they just prefer meeting virtually and don't want to meet in person anymore. Some people like having that face-to-face contact and being able to discuss issues with other members in person. Some working groups, like our landscaping working group and our testing materials working group, never have met in person and may want to continue just meeting virtually. And I'm not sure what the other working groups want to do as well. It seems like we're getting as good or better participation in some of the working group meetings by having them virtually. So anyway, I just want people to start thinking about what that might be, and the chairs of the working group, what your preferences might be as to how we meet moving forward. And then there's also, the questions of, the new Delta variant and how cases are starting back up again and how that could affect anything if it does. So just curious what other people's thoughts are on it.
So on that, Gordon, just a quick question. I think we talked about this last year. So MAG has actually, all of the rooms are video capable. So if we wanted to meet in person, we could do a combination of in-person and virtual. Is that correct?
That's the goal, but not all meeting rooms are set up that way. Most of them do have like a video screen or something like that, but not all of them have computers that are hooked up through Zoom right now. The main meeting rooms are, but I don't believe all of them are from some of the smaller ones.
Okay.
The ones where our committee normally meets, I believe it is, but they're still kind of working out some of the kinks as far as having the video of the room being part of a Zoom output, I guess you could say, since there isn't a camera on every person in the room. You may not be able to see who's talking as easily. But yeah, the goal is to be moving forward into the future that all of our in-person meetings will include the option of calling in, either by phone or through Zoom.
Okay, yeah, the other thought I had too was if there are going to be in-person meetings, or actually, I guess if there are going to be, both in-person and virtual meetings, does MAG want to have like a participant cutoff? Because obviously from Buckeye, if I decide, hey, I want to drive down to MAG for a meeting, I'm the only one there. How does that work? I mean, I'm going to just assume that you're going to be virtual. Or would you be in the office?
If we begin scheduling meetings in the office, I would need to come to the office and get the room set up, so I would be there. But that is a good question. I mean, I know a lot of people, including myself, have enjoyed not having to commute as much. And when you can meet in virtually and not have the commute, there may be people that would just prefer to continue doing that rather than, like you say, drive from Buckeye all the way down to downtown Phoenix.
Right. Well, I guess the question is if there is just one participant that wants to drive down to the meeting, then maybe would MAG be of the opinion to say, okay, sorry, we're not going to do that for one person. We're not going to do that for two people. We'll do that for maybe 5 people. I mean, is there a number criteria? Has that been discussed?
That's a good point. And that's the first I've really heard of this being brought up. But I think that is a good point. If most people are not coming in person, it may make sense just to stay as a virtual. But so that might mean we would need to confirm who wants to come to the meeting and in person and who wants to remotely come in ahead of time. But yeah, these are all good questions, and I'm not sure what the answers are.
Okay.
It's kind of a new world there. And then the other problem could be is if we want to maintain social distancing and 20 people come to the meeting, now you're sitting right next to the person next to you and you're not having any social distancing. So that could be a problem as well.
So yeah, I think definitely questions that we probably need to pose to not only amongst ourselves, but as a committee, and see what the input is for everybody, from everybody.
Also, guys, if you're gonna meet at the MAG office there, does the chair people have to be at the physical location then, or can that still be virtual?
I think they could be virtual,
Okay.
but I think that the meetings that our policy committees that have had in the room, the chairs have been in the room. So I don't think it's a requirement, though.
Gordon, this is Alan. When would these maybe hybrid or other meetings start? Is that in the fall?
They've started already for some of the committees.
For our committee?
For our committee, my suggestion was that we would just remain virtual for the rest of the year rather than worry about it right now. Because we typically only meet again in September, so that's only one more meeting. And it seems like it would be easier just to continue our current path and finish this year up. But I wanted to kind of bring it up now so that you can start thinking about it and getting feedback on what we want to do starting in January. We want to kind of go back to more normal, the new normal, the new only,
So just as a thought, Gordon, is this something we could throw out, create we'll call it a poll, or create a kind of a voting opportunity to find out what all the members choose.
Yeah.
And from that point, we could kind of tailor our decision.
We could do like a Survey Monkey sort of thing and email it out to people. And
Yeah, I think that would be a really good start, at least. I'm not saying it's going to solve any of the issues, but it would be a good start, so we get at least an idea which direction to go.
right, yeah. Because like you say, if you only get a couple people coming to an in-person meeting, and that's a lot of extra work for not a lot of extra benefit.
Agreed.
But if most people want to meet again in person and they like that, in-person contact and are tired of staring at screens all day, which I can understand also, then we may want to start getting back into our normal gear. And sometimes it is easier to share things and mark up pages that you're looking at together and stuff like that than it is to look at a screen. So,
Craig, just to throw my 2 cents worth in, the ARPA technical committees have gone back to doing hybrid meetings to where you could be in the room, and some people still on the phones, because individual companies still had their own guidelines for their staffs as to what they could do and what they couldn't do, kinds of scenarios. So I mean, when it sounds good to say, hey, yeah, let's do a hybrid meeting to where people who are comfortable can show up in person, and those who aren't can still, Zoom in or whatever. But, technologically, that gets to be very interesting, because you see sometimes the issues that we have, just everybody being virtually, when you're trying to have a camera and a microphone or two in the room for people who are there live, and you've got people who are on the phone, and you've got people who are on the Zoom or on Microsoft Teams or on whatever you're using. Sometimes it gets really difficult for people to hear what's going on, to see what's going on. So I'm going to say, unless we have really good technology for the rooms where we want to do the hybrids on it, I would continue to suggest we stay in the virtual world for a while longer.
Hey, Jeff, on those meetings that you've had, have you had many people who prefer to come in to the meetings, or is it still rare for people to come in?
I would say that we probably my best guess would be we're probably half and half. There's a few of the meetings where we're at least half and half, and then there's been a couple meetings where there's only been one or two, exactly the scenario Craig was posing. One or two people actually live in person in the room, and the majority of everyone else still was attending virtually. Your point is extremely well taken. We're getting as good or better participation sometimes since we've gone virtual, because it is many times easier and less time consuming for someone not to worry about traveling to and from the meeting and being able to, sit down wherever they are and, participate in the meeting fully without having to worry about how that impacts their schedule as much. It's just my 2 cents worth. And so personally, I would love to go back to meeting in person because I really like that, but that poses its own challenges, and the hybrid meetings can be difficult sometimes to administer.
Yeah, and one of the things I've noticed as we've done these virtual meetings is I've gotten more adept at switching between, the agendas and the cases and the website and, the voting sheets and all that kind of stuff. And when we begin regular meetings, in-person meetings, I want to be able to do that same kind of thing, but that would mean that I would need to be able to virtually log into my computer from whichever room we're in, as well as having a Zoom connection. And I haven't tested any of those things out yet, so I'm not sure how that would apply. Whereas in the past, I just took notes. Now I take the minutes based on the recordings on YouTube, so I don't have to take minutes during the meeting, and I'm able to actually show a lot of stuff on screen that people used to just look at, at their place.
You have gotten good at that, Gordon, and most of us, no, seriously, it's a very good point. And most of us, as you remember, would be carting in our big notebooks or two or whatever of information with us as we came into the meeting, so that we'd have all that stuff at our fingertips if we wanted to look back at it. And you're able to just pull it up on the screen for everyone to see. That's very beneficial.
Yes, agreed.
Hey, Craig, I just have a couple thoughts I want to share also. I find a lot of value in the in-person meetings in that there tends to be some conversation that's case related that happens more one-on-one, perhaps before the meeting or after the meeting, different elements like that. You have a chance to talk to different people, which is much more difficult when we're all in one virtual meeting. So that's one aspect that I feel like we lose out on. And I feel like at times we probably get better participation in the meeting itself, as far as sharing comments and questions when people are in person. But at the same time, for the work group meetings, I do like the virtual meetings better because again, there's multiple meetings, multiple virtual group meetings, and to always travel and go somewhere for those meetings is difficult. And I think we get more people attending the meetings when they're virtual. So, my thoughts are for those work group meetings, I like the virtual environment for encouraging more attendance. And for the 8 or so 9 meetings that we have as a committee, I actually prefer the in-person meetings myself. If we do continue to do them virtually, I'm going to encourage people to turn on their cameras, at least when they're making comments, because I forgot what different people looked like. I don't remember what people look like anymore. So
Right.
That's why I turned on my camera, just to make this comment. And then I'll turn it off when I'm done and wait until I have something else to say.
Okay,
Yeah.
Ryan, I got you.
Oh, look at that beard, Jeff. My goodness.
So no, Ryan, I think the same thing. I was actually just talking to an ex a guy that I used to work with just this morning. And I told him, I says, I prefer the in-person as well, because there's just so much more communication that you just get ancillary from just listening over the cube or listening to other people's conversations. But at the same time, to your point also, the working group, we have extremely awesome turnout. We have a bigger turnout typically, and we get a lot more input. So I don't know. I think this vote, let's kind of throw it out to everybody, and let's kind of get a consensus, a modulus consensus from the entire group to find out where we're all sitting at, and then have a discussion off of that.
Sure. And my last comment on this is I agree that I don't think we even need to make a decision today. It's great that we're talking about it, but I think moving forward the rest of this year virtual, as we've talked about, makes the most sense. And then come November, December, who knows what the environment's going to be like, so we can revisit it, do the survey, between now and then, come back and revisit it via email or some other form of communication, and make a decision prior to the January meeting. So we've got a few months still for that.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll see about maybe creating some sort of a survey monkey that I can email out to members in the meantime.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
So-
I know I've had conversations with some contractors, and they kind of like the in-person working group because, if they want to bring in, say you got a supplier wants to bring in samples or something to pass around so you can hands-on look at it. So I guess different people prefer different things, but I agree with what Ryan was saying. We got a better turnout with the online on the working groups. So.
Well, since Ryan was just talking about what we might do next year, that kind of leads into the next item, which is this year is Craig's second year as chair. So his last meeting will probably be in September. And then Ryan will ascend to the chair beginning in January, which means that we will be looking for a new vice chair for next year. And Meg tries to keep a geographic balance in the chairs. So since Ryan is from the East Valley, we would look for someone probably from the West Valley or Phoenix or Maricopa County to kind of create that balance. So if you're in one of those areas and you plan on being on the committee for a while and would be willing to, set aside some of your time to help out as a vice chair, and then in a couple more years, kind of take over as chair, that would be great. I know it's hard sometimes to get volunteers, but if there's one out there, great, fantastic. If there isn't, I may come out and start pestering people to see if I can convince someone. But if there's something, if you want to be able to contribute, and I know a lot of you have been on the committee for a while, now's a good time to kind of step forward, and I'd appreciate that if there's a volunteer. You don't have to say it right now, but if you want to contact me or Craig or Ryan, that'd be great.
I can attest that Gordon will come and talk to you personally to get you to volunteer, even if you're not interested. So you might as well volunteer.
Yeah, and Gordon does a lot of the heavy lifting, so it's not as big a burden as you might think. So.
As I can definitely attest to that.
We got a good assistant or leader, I should say.
Yes.
So that's all I had right now, Craig.
Okay. And as we were kind of talking before the meeting, just to everybody, as we are starting to wind down this year, if any cases that are ongoing, if you think as we go through the cases, if you think that it might be a carryover case to the next year, if we can just kind of discuss that just a little bit. Otherwise, I think we're going to try to wrap up as many as we can this year, but it would be one of those items that we could discuss as we move through each individual case. So on that, I think we can probably move on to item number 5. Gordon, did you have any additional items?
I did not get any additional ones, but I do want to remind people that you can still submit corrections to the miscellaneous corrections case, even though we're past July. This case is already open, so we can add to it if you find some errors that you want to add to it.
Yes.
Otherwise, we plan to vote on it in the last meeting of the year, so it's tentatively scheduled right now for the September meeting.
So, all right, well, thank you, Gordon. That we can move on to item number 5, as we just talked about miscellaneous corrections. I'm not seeing any additional items on there. I don't know if anybody has any more. We could bring them up real quick, discuss them. Otherwise, we can move on. Not hearing any. Move on to item number 6. This is the case 2105, the new details 529-1, 529-2. The curb opening catch basins, basically the City of Phoenix detail 1569. So this is one that I was sponsoring, pushing through. Again, I went through most everything and I made most of the corrections. The county gave me a lot of information that they actually corrected in the CAD detail, and went through and attempted to try to change some of the text on there. So I don't know, Gordon, if you had a chance to do that or not. I know that I wasn't able to get to all the text on there.
I haven't had a chance to get to it either, so
Okay.
it still shows some of the different size text on here.
Right. So I believe, but all the technical content has been changed. So if anybody has any additional comments, let me know. And if we don't, then I think from there also, it's not up for an action item right now, but I would definitely like to put it up for an action item next month. I did reach out to the City of Phoenix because I don't recall, somebody in the last meeting was talking about that they might be looking at reviewing this case since it is their detail. And this was not one that they were reviewing either. So this may be something that they just take out of their details if we adopt it through MAG. So, but are there any comments, questions, concerns? Not hearing any.
Hey, Craig, this is Alan. We in Phoenix, I don't want to speak for everyone in Phoenix, but the intent is if MAG adopts this, we would probably then afterwards take our detail out because it would be a MAG. So.
Okay. Yeah, and I can completely understand that. Like I said, the only real changes from what was your original detail was we added a little bit of reinforcing in it. Everything else is identical. So, but with that, not hearing any other comments, we can move on to item number 7, case 2108, the proposed new curb cut details. Alan, I believe that was yours. You're on mute.
6 or are we on 08? Okay, 08. I see. This one, was this the low impact one?
This was the curb cut detail, I believe.
Yeah, can I interject here?
Please.
This is the detail that Keith Kesty was working on.
Yes.
And what you see here in the packet is some comments that they received from McDOT based on some of the discussions at the last committee meeting. So the next 2 pages show some of their red lines. And I guess we talked about this at the working group meeting, and I guess Keith was on vacation that week, so he didn't have a chance to review them before the agenda packet was sent out.
Okay, that makes sense now because I haven't heard from him. So
Yeah.
I would defer to him. He's the one that brought it forward. So we may have to push this until he has a chance to review it.
Yeah, this is Peter. I have communicated with Keith, and and yes, that's exactly right. I sent him that, and we had additional ideas that we wanted from the working group itself to change. So he communicated with me. He would not be able to get on this because of his schedule, but he would be working on it for next month.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Peter.
Sure.
Did it sound like he would have it ready to have a possible vote in September then?
Yes. He was going to make these changes, and in addition, from the notes I had from the meeting, we talked about, I can kind of go through if you want kind of a preview of what was probably going to be happening. I think from the last meeting, everybody was not really happy about the type 4. I mean, scroll up to the first one. I can kind of walk through it. I think we're going to come down to 2 two types. It's going to be basically a type 1 and a type 2. Type 1 is just kind of what the county changed right here, where you have two different profiles of the type 1. And I think we all agreed that there didn't seem to be a real need to socket, that probably just taking that whole section out and replacing it and pouring it as one made more sense. So he's going to make those changes there and call that the type 1, the basic geometry that you see there. Okay, we can go to the next one. And this would be the type 2. We basically get rid of what you see as type 4 isometric and go with that type 3, which would be the new type 2, as that seemed to be one that would be a good alternative. And again, this would be placed in whole, not, the saw cut would be across the entire cross section there. So that's the general idea we talked about in the meeting. I think we talked about here, and kind of skinning this down a little bit. So he said he'd be working on that. He would try to get that in as soon as possible once he got back.
Okay. I think that would be good because, yeah, we had quite a bit of discussion on the type 4s last time, and
Yeah,
it wasn't happy.
No, and I think we're just going to get rid of the type 4 that you see there, and then we'll go to a couple views of what's shown as type 3. Will just basically be type 2. You'll have two different versions. There seem to be some people who did maybe use the type 4, but because of the challenges, I think that everybody mentioned, I think even in our working group, we thought, it's probably not worth keeping.
Okay, no, sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, concerns on item number 7, the case 2108?
I'd just say that one sounds like it's going to be a carryover case.
Potentially, yeah.
Seems like we're still next month. At this point, we still haven't seen the cleaned up versions and had that additional conversation. So,
Right.
If September is our last meeting, then there's a high probability that's going to happen.
Okay.
But hopefully we'll at least get the new version up in the agenda packet. And then if everybody likes it, then maybe it could go through.
Yeah. I'd like to reserve the potential we could do that. I mean, it's see what it looks like. I think it's really taking things out. It's not as much adding. But yeah, let's see.
Sounds like a plan. All right. Anything else on item number 7? Moving over to item number 8, case 2109, revising the mag details 419-2, the polymer, and the 420-2 precast manhole bases. Matthew, are you online? I didn't see him. I wasn't sure if he was going to be here. I was kind of helping him and working through this as well. Gordon's got on the screen what we kind of did on this. We talked about this in the last meeting. Everything that's highlighted was what was revised. The whole intent of this case, originally, if you notice, the 24 to 36 inches from the edge of the structure out to the bell is what was the original detail called for 1 foot piece of pipe in between there. And for clay pipe, when you've got those extended bottoms, that the larger diameter, I guess, the larger diameter clay pipe just doesn't work. The picture really shows it where the bell is in conflict with that, we call it the anti-flotation ring. So NCPI they were helpful on this, and they helped us up with some of the dimensions. NCPI actually, in their standards, they allow up to a 36-inch piece of pipe on the edge for the manhole coming into it for differential settlement. So we revised the detail to go anywhere between 24 to 36 inches max for the extra piece of pipe in between the edge of the structure and the bell. We modified the notes below 11 and 13 just to be more compliant with what is actually being built and what NCPI requires. I reached out to 3 of the manufacturers who do polymer manholes, and none of them had any concerns or issues with the notes that we have on there. So I believe in terms of manufacturing, we're good there. So I think we are to a point where we can, if there are no additional comments, we can put this case up for vote next month as well, unless anybody sees anything on there that we missed.
Hey, Craig,
Uh-huh.
this is on the agenda for action this month if everybody is ready to vote on it.
Okay.
Hey, Gordon, can you go back one page? Note 13, acceptable joint shall be polyurethane bell and spigot, or is that plain end pipe? Is that supposed to be plain?
Oh, yes.
Let me see. Yeah, it should be plain, like on this note.
Okay,
Typo. You can blame that on me. I typed it.
that's all right.
Good catch though, Ryan. But yeah, I didn't notice the possible action. So if there are no additional comments or questions, concerns on this, I don't hear Matt on the line, so
I'm right here, Greg. Hear me?
Matt, yeah,
Sorry,
I don't
sorry,
hear
I
any
had to drop
comments
off.
on this. Is this something that you would like to put up for a vote this month?
Yes, I think it sounds really good.
Okay, sounds good to me. I was thinking the same thing. So, let's get this. We are at, what is this, 2109, which is there. So let's see.
So in order to vote, we'll need a motion and a second.
Yeah,
Craig, I'll make a motion to approve case 21-09 with the spelling correction.
Thank you, Ryan. Can we get a second?
Second.
Thank you. And we will go through roll call. City of Avondale,
Yes.
City of Buckeye is a yes. Chandler,
Yes.
El Mirage is not present. Gilbert,
Yes.
Glendale,
Yes.
Goodyear,
Yes.
Maricopa County,
Yes.
Mesa,
Yes.
Peoria.
Yes.
Thank you, Dan. Phoenix.
Yes.
Thank you, Matt. Scottsdale.
Yes.
Thank you. Surprise.
Yes.
Tempe
Yes.
and Youngtown. Not present. So with that, the yeses carry and case 2109 passes. Thank you, Brian, for your work, and thank you, committee, for the input.
Thank you, Greg. Good job. Thank you for your help with it as well.
So excellent. Moving on then, case number 9, item number 9, case 2110, revising section 776, the masonry, mortar, and grout. Jeff?
Greg, I've received no comments, questions, concerns, or anything in the last several months since we submitted the case, so I think we're ready for a vote.
Anybody have any other comments? Not hearing any. Thank you, Jeff. Can I get a motion? I say Buckeye would motion a yes.
I'll second.
Second, thank you, Jim. And we'll start down the line. Avondale,
Yes.
Buckeye is a yes. Chandler,
Yes.
thank you. El Mirage is not present. Gilbert,
Yes.
Glendale,
Yes.
Goodyear,
Yes.
thank you. Maricopa County,
Yes.
thank you, Carl. Mesa,
Yes.
Peoria,
Yes.
City of Phoenix,
Yes.
Yes.
thank you, thank you. All right, Scottsdale,
Yes.
thank you. Surprise,
Yes.
Tempe,
Yes.
and Youngtown is not present. So case 2110 passes. Again,
Thank you.
yes, thank you, Jeff, for all your work. So with that, Item 9 passes, item 8 passes. Moving on. Item number 10, it's case 2111, revised section 611 to add requirements for potable water hauling. Jim, have you had a chance to get on this one?
Not really. You know, I've tried looking at it and rewriting it, and I don't know. I might get more convoluted, so I don't know. You know, if we really need to change anything in it, so
Have you gotten any comments?
no.
Nothing really. Okay.
I mean, it pretty much is self-explanatory, so.
Yeah. So if I'm correct, I think basically all we added was just MCESD language and AAC language. Is that correct?
Yeah,
I guess.
I think that was a question about what came first, you know, like the chicken or the egg. So I don't know if that really matters in this case. So each location, you know, deals with it.
Right.
It tells you exactly what you need to do. So
So, are you thinking maybe, I don't think it's up for action this month, but are you thinking maybe possible action next month?
yeah, I
Okay.
mean, I think it would function. So
So I think that's a good idea. Let's, Gordon, if we can put this up for possible action next month.
Sure.
And if
I
anybody
mean,
has
if
any
somebody
comments.
wants to look into it and give me comments, we can talk about it at the working group meeting. But I don't know. I think it's okay as is. So.
No, good. I don't know if anybody has any comments, questions, concerns. Not hearing any. From there, we can move on to item number 11. It's case 2112, revised section 601 to add minimum testing frequencies on table. Jim, I know you worked on that. Are you?
Yeah, I did a revision today, cleaning up some of the comments. We had a really good discussion at the last working group meeting. You know, Brian brought up some good comments from, you know, his connections with the contractors. So I tried to incorporate that. The only changes is the underlying areas, which shows the changes. You know, when I spelled out inches here on this one, so that's something we added.
No, I've been in the working group on this, and there's been a ton of discussion and a ton of information in on this. So I think we're really close. I don't know if anybody else has had a chance to look through it and have any comments, questions,
Hey,
concerns.
Jim and Craig, I've got a comment. If we can scroll down a little bit more to the table itself. Let's see here. Yeah, so in this section, it talks about utility types, and it has sewer, water, and storm. And then at the bottom, it's got dry utilities. And the question for City of Mesa came up is, where does gas fall into this matrix? I know City of Mesa operates our own gas utility, and so we're particularly interested in that. Oftentimes, I think gas is considered a dry utility. So I guess that's the question, is that defined somewhere, or would we want to include gas as a utility type? And the thoughts on where that might go. We're thinking it probably applies more to the same column and testing frequencies as sewer, water, and storm. But we think we'd like to have gas added in there some way, somehow.
So question, Ryan, on your testing frequencies, is that, let's call gas a dry utility, or we can call dry utility a gas, however you want to. Do you guys typically test it one test per lift every 500 as a frequency? Is that frequency correct?
I'd have to double check what Mesa does for our gas lines, but I think right now our gas lines typically are getting installed joint with water very, very frequently. So oftentimes we're the same testing frequencies as water lines. And so I think Mesa's preference is that it would go in that column, but I could double check and see and get that back to you.
So if you guys were to go in your own trench, then the frequency would not, this table would not fit your frequency then.
Perhaps. But I guess the other, I mean, dry utilities is a lot of communication lines and whatnot, but I know most cities, municipalities that don't have their own gas, Southwest Gas is the predominant one, and I guess that's the question open for everyone else: is what kind of backfill testing requirements do you have on gas lines? So it's not just City of Mesa, I don't think.
Yeah, I know I can speak for the city of Buckeye, and we actually require the gas lines to go in the PUE. So a one test every 500 feet per lift would be adequate for us. And we don't run a joint trench with gas. So I could see how this table would work for us. I'm not sure about anybody else.
Well, I think gas is going in electric trenches now. So,
Yes.
That's true. It is more frequently.
so I don't know. That's a good point, Ryan. Maybe we need to define dry utilities somewhere. Or we could add it here.
I have had a chance to bounce it off some of the standards folks at SRP. And they felt that the 500 foot was very liberal, to be honest. So they were very comfortable with 500 feet on electric. And yes, there is joint gas electric. SRP has a standard that they work with both communication and with gas to do a joint gas installation. The gas aspect is really, you got to watch the bedding around it. There's no compaction on the bedding. It's sand around that. And in fact, there could be a challenging problem to try to compact that sand around as a bedding around the gas pipes. They're very protective of that.
Mhm.
So if you're talking backfill, that shouldn't be an issue that I can see, at least the frequency and the number of lifts. But gas does have a difference in the bedding.
Right.
Hey
So
guys,
yeah,
it's Rob Godwin with Avondale. Yeah, when we were working on the table, we put dry utilities in there initially just for the crossings, because like Ryan's saying, I don't know if anyone besides Mesa has their own gas, and I didn't think about dry utilities. I thought of them as being power, telecommunication, and gas. They're normally the privately owned ones, but they cross the right of way. And then later, I've noticed some problems in the PUE with settlement of the trenches and settling brick pavers below, people's driveways settling and the brick pavers being damaged. So we talked about it and figured we should put something in there for the PUE testing, even though it's not right away, but it's affecting, residents. So it made sense to do something in there for that. And I know what Peter's saying about the gas being shaded with the patter. They come in and use sand, or they use native material, the really fine material, to backfill it with for the initial backfill. And we were looking at the final backfill being tested, not right around the gas, because no one wants to get close to the gas when they test. But we just felt it would be good to have some kind of testing on the backfill in the PUE. Just there was some kind of effort being made by the contractor.
I guess that does kind of bring up another question, Rob and Ryan. So in Mesa, is gas installed in the PUE, or is it installed in the right of way?
In Mesa, gas installed everywhere, right of way, PUE, very frequently under pavement. And I know the City Mesa's gas utility is a little bit unique because it operates outside of the City Mesa. Also, we have our gas utility is in the town of Queen Creek, as well as Pinal County and some other areas. And so I know when we're out in those other municipalities, we are, as was mentioned before, we're not able to go with the water lines anymore. We do try to go with electric lines, but it's very frequently in the pavement on arterial roadways and whatnot.
Okay.
Well, I'm okay with adding a separate one for gas if we want, or defining it as part of dry utilities.
So Gordon, can you scroll down to the bottom of the table? And I'm kind of thinking, is there a place where we could put a footnote? I know that we've kind of had some discussions on the footnotes down here. Is there something we could put down here And maybe, or even I guess in definitions, we could throw, I don't know if definitions has dry utility, or we could always look into that, I guess.
I think it's defined in 601.3.1 utilities. I think Craig, you and I were talking a while back about that, about the dry utilities. We were trying to put something in 3.1, so 1.3.1. I want to see if it talks about dry utilities, if it defines them.
Yeah, if it defines them, I'm thinking we're most likely covered on this. I'm gonna kind of throw it out to everybody else to see what they think.
Sure.
Greg, I couldn't remember if Title 40 of the Arizona Revised Statutes, which is the blue stake law, essentially has any definitions.
In terms of dry utility?
Yes. I'd have to go back and look.
I don't recall either.
Actually, a little further down, 601.4.11 has a little bit on electronic, telephonic, telegraphic, electrical, oil and gas lines. It's kind of defined in there, but that's more about the shading around the conduit. It doesn't really call them out as dry utilities.
So yeah, maybe what we'll do is we can look into this at the in the working group. I have I guess I just like to find out what the definitions are.
Yeah, it would be easy enough just to define, what dry utility is. I guess in my mind, it's just a field term, and I understand maybe it has to be clarified officially. If we could refer to it in this section, it would be helpful.
I was just looking in the definitions section, and gas is lumped in as an underground facility with everything. So it doesn't talk about it in relationship to dry utilities.
So it sounds like, Rob, what you were reading about earlier, just a few minutes ago, was probably about as close as we're going to get where it actually talks about a dry utility being gas.
And everyone, people agree, we could maybe modify 4.11 to say dry utilities, and then refer to this in the table.
Or we could list it as another utility, call it gas, fuel lines. Because, we do have, like in Avondale, we've got some jet fuel lines that run through our city. And so there are other, lines that are, I guess when they're compressed, they're liquid form. So, whatever.
That's true. There are other gas lines. There's nitrogen lines that go to some of the electronics plants. I know in Chandler in specific, there are.
So maybe we just create another item here on other utility type and lump gas in with that. Because you're right, Peter, gas, we wouldn't be concerned with the initial backfill because they have their own sand, that covers the initial. So it would only be the final backfill.
Yep.
So. And most of these fuel lines have their own initial backfill requirements. So.
Yeah, I mean, it may be a definition because you do have dry utilities, I guess, in my mind, have always been everything else but sewer, water, and storm drain.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe it's good to define it because it is a questionable.
In Maricopa County, we got 5 different categories: power, gas, water irrigation, storm drain, telecommunication, and CATV. The gas does sit by itself in our definitions.
I wonder if this would be as easy as just adding a definition under the definition saying a dry utility equates to, these items. kind of taking that, I guess, Gordon, here's a question. Could we take that as a blooper case, define dry utilities, and get this case through the process this year? Would that be considered a blooper?
I don't know if I would consider it a blooper because it's not really a correction, it's an addition.
No, that's true.
Seems like the easiest thing to me would just be add a row for the gas. And if it duplicates what's in dry utilities, that's fine, I guess.
I think you want to
That's true.
define a little broader than just natural gas. It could be any type of gas line.
Excuse me, I think I don't understand the concern. This is shared with City of Tempe. Are we not, isn't the concern sinking, like the paver's been damaged in the PUE?
Yeah,
Why is that? So if that's the case, then why is that issue only specific to gas?
It's not. I mean, the PUE compaction's always been a problem, so for all utilities, so.
So then wouldn't this testing be applied to all of the dry utilities?
yes, it should be. That's the intent, at least.
And I think that was kind of the thought process is defining a dry utility being either comm lines, power lines, or gas lines.
Yeah, I think it should be, when you define dry utility, it should include all dry utilities.
I think that's intent. And maybe the easiest thing to do is on the row that we already have that says dry utilities parentheses PUE, maybe that says gas, comma, dry utilities, comma, other.
That was kind of my original thought, is creating a footnote, and footnote number 4 where dry utilities equal or as defined as, or however we want to put it in there.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a quick way to do it now. Just add a footnote to the table, and we can
yeah.
we can look at it later in another case. So.
Yeah, if we want to take the dry utilities definition out of this table, then we take it out of this table next year and put it into a definition so we can get this case pushed on through.
Sure.
That's what I'd
The
suggest.
other question I have
note.
is, go ahead, sorry.
I would just add a note right now and to address it, just to help explain the table, and then we can define it in another case next year. So.
Yeah, because this case, we've had so many discussions about how important this is right now, because we got people out there that, it's kind of a by gosh, by golly on our testing requirements, because there's really not a whole lot out there. And Rob's laughing, but he deals with it every day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
no,
definitely.
So
Can I
SRP.
ask another question? Why is this only in the PUE? I mean, at least in the city of Tempe, we have the same issue in the right of way.
Yeah, Rob, I was going to ask you, why do we say PUE on here? Shouldn't it be PUE and right away?
Well, we have them for crossing, so we're
Where? I don't see it in crossings below. You say dry utility crossings?
it's down below. It says irrigation, comma, dry utility crossings.
All right, yeah, I see it.
So like landscape irrigation sleeves, and then the dry utility backfill.
Yeah, but we might have you might have a place where you're going to run parallel in the right of way. So I would say in the first in the main line, I put right of way and PUE up there.
I would too.
For the dry utilities PUE.
Yeah, because sometimes they run parallel when there's no room in the PUE. They come to us for a permit to run in the right of way. So.
Okay.
I like to change that to include PUE and right away.
Isn't that implied anyway if you took that off completely?
Yeah,
That would be better.
get off like that.
It's dry utility.
Right? No, I agreed. And
That
from
was
there,
it.
we just define dry utility and move on.
That was easy.
Hey, another question I have before we leave that. Who is going to do this testing? Is that the municipalities?
That's up to the municipality. I mean, they can do their own testing, or they can have a third party, or they can rely on a developer's third party.
But what is the thought here? What were you guys envisioning?
Well, again, this table just says the frequencies. We weren't going to get into who's going to procure what. So
The way City of Mesa does this is the contractor's responsible for quality control. The testing frequencies that are shown here are similar to quality control testing. And so we require that of the contractor. And then City of Mesa does our own quality assurance testing, which is a lesser frequency, just to back check that. But to me, I think that's the general intent. But again, that I don't think is spelled out anywhere.
And why 500 feet and not 100? Is there a data behind that?
So I think the confusion is coming from these test frequencies are already spelled out in individual max sections. This is just a table summarizing in one place all of the testing requirements, correct?
No, actually, most of these are not called out. That's where we've been going back and forth trying to get something in a table, calling them out in the table. But yeah, believe it or not, the sections don't have them called out.
all this data was gathered from looking at all the different cities' supplements, and so we came up with an average, so to speak, maybe on the conservative side, and that we had to pick a number, and so that's what this is. So,
Right.
Like I said, I asked SRP and they thought 500 feet was very generous, so they didn't have a problem with that. I've seen their internal standard that they're changing. They're doing improvements on, and right now it's a little bit less than that, but not much.
Yeah, and I think that's, Peter, I think that's what we found out as we were going through this, is when we take all of the different municipalities in the area and we kind of throw everything into a big pile and kind of average everything. Yeah, I kind of threw it into a spreadsheet just to kind of see where it's at. And this is what it spat out, is we were looking right about 500 feet, 250 feet. It was just good round numbers. And like Jim said, we had to pick a number because, one city could go to this, one city could go to that. So at the end of the day, we just had to pick a number.
Oh, okay. So there's no research behind it. That's just a number we picked.
Well, it's an average off of, I don't remember, Rob, how many cities you got, but 6 or 7 different cities. So we took their requirements and we just averaged their requirements, and 500 was a number that was close to the average of all those cities. Some were higher, some were lower.
And is this test, what is this test? Is that a density?
Yeah, it's density testing.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'll shut up now.
Also, this was designed as the minimum testing.
Yeah.
Cities could require additional testing if they wanted.
Well, yeah, and if we want to go to the next, some of the other comments I made, let's do that, Gordon.
I had one more that SRP had come up with, and that was, manholes on there. And they said, well, what about transformers, switch gear, and the above ground structures that sit in the PUEs?
Would that fall under the dry utilities?
Yeah, but it's not a linear lift. It's not it's per structure. So like you have manholes per manhole, you do have dry utility above grade structures.
But they test that's for their utility specifically, though, isn't it, Peter? I mean,
but if they're in the PUE, if you don't care, they're not under pavements. That's one good thing. But you've seen, we call them the leaning sisters. You'll see these vaults that are sitting on all sorts of different structures, different directions. And I know SRP has tried to focus on getting those changed to having CLSM put underneath if possible. And they do their own compaction testing. I didn't know if you wanted to incorporate that or not. Is it necessary for this document?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, we could add to it next year if there's a real need for it.
Okay.
I think Jim's point is that structure foundation, if it fails, it affects their utility, but it doesn't necessarily affect anybody else. Whereas the trenches or the things in the right of way potentially do.
Okay. It was a question when they reviewed this, they just had that come back. So they're more than happy not to get that told to them. So that's fine.
Yeah. But besides the aesthetics, I mean, that kind of stuff bugs me when I see that. But I figure they have their own requirements and they're doing their own testing, aren't they?
That's true. Testing. Yeah. And it's very similar. Either they do their own testing or the contractor is required to do that. That doesn't works all the time.
if it would help them, maybe we can add that next year or something. We could talk about it,
Okay,
Well,
I'm done with my
being-
comments then.
Being in the PUE, that was my question. If it's in the PUE, it's not really the right of way, which MAG's for, but it affects driveways and things. So that's kind of why I thought the trenches we should cover in here somehow.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, a good average from my perspective.
Gordon, can we go back up to
This
the
is-
comments
This part?
that I changed? Yeah. I want to go over some of this. So here in the first paragraph on this page says, this table is an overall guide to assist contractors, geotechnical labs, testing personnel, in the planning of testing locations. So I added contractors in there because they need, we didn't have it in there before, so. And then again, the amount of actual testing may vary for individual projects based on changes in materials, field conditions, and contractor means and methods, so. You know, if you've got a trench that's got, cleachy on the top, and then you bust through to a sand layer, things are gonna change for how you're gonna test it, so.
Right.
In the second paragraph there, special attention should be paid to areas where different methods meet when means and methods change or long time span periods have passed. I added that in there. I don't know if that sounds good, but sometimes you've got a problem where you've got a long wait, month or two maybe, and they go back and they resurrect something. So I wanted to put that in there in case they wanted to retest if something has been sitting too long. And I took out that example. I don't think that was necessary. And then the next paragraph in yellow, there was a changes. Engineer reserves a right, and this is again important for a couple of the agencies and contractors. Engineer reserves the right to modify testing frequencies if necessary for each project based on changes in means and methods, changing soil, trench or soil conditions, or when multiple failures are encountered, where the engineer can increase the testing frequencies. So if you got a contractor that's not getting passing frequencies, then I think the engineer or the agency has a right to require more testing. And we took out this other thing because it was kind of concerning for contractors about, we didn't want to decrease frequencies again because this is supposed to be minimum. And then the backfill for deep trenches, I reworded that below in a new paragraph. And it says for backfill of deep trenches defined as deeper than 12 feet, the contractor has the option to submit an alternate or modified backfill plan, including the use of other imported materials, such as ABC or CLSM, and a modified testing program to the engineer for review and approval. And that alternate plan shall be prepared by a third-party qualified lab. So that was, I know, Brian, I don't know if you're on, I'm trying to address the concern from the contractor side where, the inspectors or cities just can't, go out there willy-nilly and say, I want more tests. And then the problem is with the deep trenches. It could be a problem. So we want to give the contractor an option to submit an alternate.
No, I think, Jim, you did a great job capturing that. So I think your guys are covered, and contractors, you give them the ability to go to something else and a way to do that.
Yeah, I just didn't want to, you gotta, and again, I don't know if you guys want to discuss the definition of a deep trench. We can change 12 feet to 15 or whatever, but that's open for discussion, obviously, but. Is that a good number to use? Do people think 12 feet's pretty deep?
Yeah, for Buckeye, I think 12 is a good number because we have sewers that are over 10 feet. We call those, we put what we call deep tap services because they're, they're deeper than normal. So we've got a 10-foot dimension for that. I think 12, I think 12 is really a nice number for what we're looking for on this, for the intent of this.
Yeah, I know back east where they have freezing, that's pretty shallow still, but whatever. Because there's going to be some challenges, to get testing safely done in these deep trenches. And so that's why a contractor needs to think about it. And if you can't meet that table or minimums, then, you got a chance here to submit a plan, an alternate. Or maybe you use a CLSM on the bottom 4 feet and then, native on top of it. There's options. So you don't have to get down there and test it. So.
Right.
Yeah, Jim, I like the idea of requesting a plan or saying they have the right to submit a plan. It shows some forethinking. Like I said, I've had some contractors that they don't really think about how they're going to do it. I've had some deep trenches that they just come out and start backfilling, and we can't require the lab to monitor the backfill. And then there's been issues with the contractors providing shoring in time for the technicians to show up, and it's not been real coordinated. So I just like to have some kind of forethought on deep backfill so we don't have settlement later. Because it's really difficult to get in there and test these deep areas without them coordinating better. And maybe a contractor could look and say, hey, look, it's sandy 20 feet down is dangerous. We propose to, use half sack slurry for the bottom 5 feet or 6 feet and then mechanically compact above there. Something like that. I think I wanted to emphasize the deep backfill being something that's come back and haunted cities in the past.
And to add to your point, Rob, like you said, at least this gives them there's a little bit of thought that goes into it that says, hey, we're going to have to come up with the plan B on doing this safely. So
yeah,
I like it.
So Brian, does that look pretty good to you? Jim's wordsmithing. He went there and really got it written up, I think. So
I think so too, Rob. I think you hit it great. I think that'll work for everybody involved.
Okay.
Good deal. Thank you.
I have a question on this part I'm highlighting right here. What do you mean by a long time span? Should that be a more specific time period?
Yeah, I know. I kind of threw that in there. We've had issues where something sits for a long time and it's like, well, you need to retest it. And so I don't know. I'm not really pleased how that looked, but I wanted to get it in there like a placeholder. But
sure.
I'm open to suggestions. We can change that or modify it.
I don't know what you think a long time would be, but I think that would be a question everybody would ask. So
True.
you probably should have a specific, like a week or a month or whatever you think it would be.
Yeah, I'm working on a project right now that's about 14 years.
Oh, wow.
I think most people would agree that was a long time span.
Yeah. But you probably had enough rain. Maybe you've had enough rain settle everything by now.
So.
Well, I mean, yeah, it didn't really address the time. I know, what I put in here before was an example, which probably wasn't the place to have it. And I have had this issue quite a bit where contractors will backfill the main, but they won't backfill the manholes. And it may be 3-4 weeks before they come back to backfill the manholes. And they're usually different operators, different equipment. And if they don't go back in, and if someone's not diligent about testing or monitoring, and if the operator doesn't know, he just assumes everything that was backfilled before passed. but I've found they had to dig back 15, 20 feet sometimes back into the material that was there before because it was just being sloped down and it was just loose fluff. And if someone's not really watching that, that stuff will remain, and we would have a settlement 15 feet away from the manhole. So that's kind of an example, and it sat there for a while. I mean, to give an exact time frame is difficult because it may be a week later or 2 weeks later, but that is a different means, probably a different means and methods in a way, or different operation. I guess you could say different, maybe different backfill operations.
Yeah, I'll reword that. And again, we can finish it off in the working group, clean it up. But
Sure.
I think we're about done with it. So what I'd like,
Yeah.
again, we'll finish it off in the working group. Maybe, make sure we got the dry utilities taken care of for this case for now. And then I'd like to see if we can vote on it next month. So.
I think we're really close, Jim.
I was just going to say, this is Roy Scottsdale. I was just going to say regarding the dry utilities, and at the risk of rehashing this too much, with adding the gas or adding the footnote number 5 to define the gas for the main lines, do we not want to also add that same footnote under our laterals and stuff? So you denote the dry utilities in the services, laterals, and crossings as well, and have the same note, obviously a footnote or a note 5 on that as well.
Yeah, we could do that. All right. Any other comments? This is good. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, everybody. There a lot of good comments. Thanks, Brian, for vetting it on your end. So it's good. I mean, it's a summary of a generalization and to come up with some minimums that we've collected from the other agencies. Just to put it in MAG, it's a baseline basically. If you need more, or you got areas in your city that you've got some problem soils, you might need to do something else. But this kind of creates a baseline for contractors to bid and for their subconsultants to price things out. Because that's the problem I've had, is that we start wanting more and then everybody says, well, who's going to pay for it? And so that's why the need came to my mind, is that we need to have something in MAG to have a baseline minimum. So that's the overall purpose of this. So.
Definitely.
All right, thanks.
All right, thanks, guys. Thanks, Rob, for all your work.
You
Jim,
bet,
for all your
thanks.
work.
I'll
So,
post this updated version on the website since it wasn't included in the packet.
All right, thanks.
all right, moving on to item number 12, case 2113, the new detail 227 sediment traps. Bashar, this was yours.
I did not know I was supposed to do a presentation on this. The folks who prepared it didn't tell me. So I have nothing. I don't know. Maybe I should get prepared and present it next time.
I can help on this. Eric unfortunately just had to get off the call. He had another meeting he had to run to. I think he just sent an email out to a number of us. So this one is the one that we had some changes to be made in terms of, and I'm not sure, is this the latest one that Eric just did, Gordon? I hadn't seen the.
Yeah. Well, this is the one he sent me for the packet last week.
Okay, last week, yes.
So changes since then, but.
Okay, so one of the things that's been added to this from the prior one was the cross-section BB is now been put in there so you can see the curbing on the sides. And that was one of the requests from last time, to identify that curbing and looking at the differences between them. So now it shows that curbing going all the way up the side. The second thing was we did eliminate the spillway elements of it, just identifies it spillway per the plans. That way, depending on whatever the construction plans are for that, it would be, so we're focused really just on the sediment trap here. I think those are probably the two biggest changes that we did have. So I think that was the major responses we'd gotten from last time's meeting. So I guess we can look at it one more time, but I think that's what we had down. Trying to go back and forth. And going, carrying all your stuff. I still have all my big heavy things to look at here. So yeah, there was concern for the water entrance. We didn't want to deal with that. We just really wanted to focus on the sediment trap in and of itself, show the curbing in 2 profiles. So it's actually been simplified down quite a bit.
And I think that was the majority of the conversation last time, Peter, was the profiles. So
yeah, I couldn't see the curbing on the side, and then it was getting too much into the spillway. The focus of this is really not a spillway, it's the sediment trap. And we talked about it in the working group that we do need to come up with probably a set of spillway details. We've got I think it's 550 or something like that in MAG right now. But that's kind of a major league spillway of water coming out. This is meant to be something more in a retention basin, something quite a bit simpler. So that's something we decided, let's just pull spillways completely out and not worry about that and work on it here. And you know, in the curb cut one, it was the same thing, spillway per plan. And we're just saying that spillways have to be dealt with probably as a separate issue next year. So that's really the changes that were made. It's simplified down to just the sediment trap now.
One thing that Eric did send me, in addition to his revisions, was some of the specs that were in the LID handbook related to this. I don't believe he wants these as part of the case, but just as a reference materials.
Excellent. Yeah, I would agree. That kind of gives a background on some of it. So basically, these are the changes that were requested last time. We walked through them in the working group, and we're in general agreement with what the committee wanted to do. So they're now shown there now as a much slimmed down version of what was there before.
I think the notes section, a lot of those 4 notes no longer apply now that we've made these revisions.
Yeah, let me look.
On the actual detail itself, Gordon.
Oh, here?
Yeah, those notes there. So, for example, note 4 riprap size based on design report, that goes back to the spillway portion.
Oh, yeah, you're right. We got rid of that. We're just referencing erosion protection per civil plans now.
Note 3 says concrete shall be type A or B, but I think this detail should probably specify one or the other.
yeah, typically type A is a structure. So we could even, and this would be out to everybody, even a type C. I mean, you're not going to have anything driving on it. You're not going to have anything.
So we're going to get rid of that note. Oops. So you can get rid of note 4. Let me take that for myself. Delete note 4.
I think note 2 also applies to the curb opening detail and no longer to the sediment trap. So maybe note 2 goes away.
Very good.
And then the only other comment I have is on the last note there. Well, the first note there, note 1. It says the dimensions of the sediment trap shall be adjusted based on sediment load and hydraulic jumps, which is great for the designer to know, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure in a construction detail if the contractor is expected to make field adjustments to the dimensions, or I'm not sure how that note's going to really weigh in on this detail.
These were meant where it says sediment trap 2 foot or as noted on plans. It was meant to show a minimum. It was assumed on the plans there would be an identification of it. This was meant to provide guidance after that. What's it supposed to look like? How does it go in? Quantities are going to have to come off the construction plans.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so maybe the note should reference dimensions should be called out on the plans or something like that.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Instead of saying sediment trap should be adjusted, dimensions shall be as called out on the construction plans. Yep.
Yeah, something to that effect.
That's only for the curb opening. You don't really have a depth of the sediment trap. Is there a certain minimum size that you want?
I think that's 3 inches. Is that 3 inches?
No, not the depth. The width of it. As it comes down the slope, it says curb opening for civil plans. It gives you the width, but you don't know how deep it is. Is there a certain minimum size that you want for the sediment trap? A foot, 2 feet, 18 inches, 16 feet? I don't know. Match the curb opening?
So width-wise, it should state or should be shown to match the curb opening. But then as you're referring to depth-wise, meaning that the length along section A is undefined in here.
Yeah.
But so again, that length dimension in that cross-section A direction should be called out in the plans.
But
I
even
guess is the question.
But right there in section AA, it talks about the sediment trap 2 feet or as noted on the plans. I think that's, is that the
Okay.
depth you're talking about?
Right.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't read it. It was
Minimum,
too small on the screen. Okay, so it is covered. Yeah, okay.
So I think to your point though, Ryan, would this be something where we take that sediment trap right there that he's going, that Gordon's hovering over, and take that, the sediment trap as noted on the plans? I mean, don't give it a minimum, just it's gonna have to be noted on the plans.
Well, I'm fine with it. I mean, I'm fine with saying 2 foot minimum because I don't think anything less is going to make sense, even in the smallest of curb openings. So I think it's okay. And when you've got this detail, you kind of want to have that minimum because it's not always going to be called out, and there's going to be some questions that come up. And so I think that note's okay as is.
Yeah,
I would agree.
Section BB, we've got the sediment trap. That width should be minimum curb openings or per the plans. I don't think you'd want it smaller. And actually, that should go up on top. And it probably needs to re-detail B. That width should be as at least the curb opening and possibly larger. It's going to be sized by the designer. It's like a driveway or anything else. You don't specify the width of the length. That's up to the designer to specify. You have minimums. You can have minimums.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I'll get this over to Eric. I'll change it, or Gordon, did you want to send him a note on it? How I can do it too.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, between the two of us, we'll get him the notes and see if we can get this. I hope we could vote on this next time because there's really not that many changes we're talking about here.
Yeah, that was a question I was going to ask Peter. So if we can definitely put it up for action next month, I think that would be good. I think that the comments that we talked about today are, I don't want to call them minor, but they're not major. How about that?
Yeah. They're very doable in a very short period of time.
Yes.
I think we got the big ones out of the way by getting that spillway out of there and then getting the cross section thrown in. It was kind of confusing without it.
So,
Okay.
All right. Any other comments on that? Not hearing any. Moving on to item number 13, case 2114, the new landscaping related specifications. Ryan, I think you are taking this one. If you're talking, you're on mute.
I wasn't talking. I forgot that I had a case. I know there have been a few revisions to this. I did see that come through. I'm not sure I'm able to talk through those. So again, Peter, I don't know if you're able to talk through all those changes or not.
We had been waiting for comments. In fact, we called off the last meeting because we're waiting to hear comments back from the review. And as far as I know, we haven't gotten any.
Wayne Colback emailed me saying he wasn't able to attend the meeting today, but what's included in your packet, section 430, is a newer version than the one that was initially presented last month. And he told me there were just minor changes, but I don't know what those changes were because they weren't highlighted or redlined in any way.
Yeah, we didn't have a meeting to really discuss it. I think some of the people there in the subgroup have been just reviewing it and doing some minor tweaking of it. I really didn't know. And again, we called off the last meeting on Monday because we really need comments. I don't think it's of any major substance at this point, and considering the extent of everything being changed. So we're primarily waiting for input from the agencies.
Okay. So Peter, do you think, or Ryan, do you think this is going to be able to be voted on next time, or do you think this will be a carryover for next year?
I'm pretty positive it's going to be a carryover.
I agree. I think this is definitely something that needs some feedback. So the fact that we just got it out last month, people haven't provided comments yet. I don't want to assume that means there aren't any comments. I just think that means people haven't had a chance to get it reviewed yet. I would expect that next month or thereafter, we'll start to see comments come in.
Okay.
And that was part of the intent, to make sure we got this out, because we thought there would be some extended time to really review. It'd be nice to vote on it this year, but I don't think we had any unrealistic expectations that was going to happen.
Okay. All righty, sounds good.
Hey, one more thought. Sorry, Craig.
No, good.
I found an email that talked about some of the changes to it. So the biggest changes I think that came out in this recent version had to do with plant establishment period and how that relates to the contract acceptance period. So typically the establishment period is going to occur as part of the contract acceptance. We don't want to accept a contract and still have plant establishment happening after contract acceptance. So there were some just wording updates on that. So if you're looking for the changes from the last version you saw, that's where you'll want to look, as the establishment period.
I wanted to mention that I only included that revised section, but the landscaping case includes also section 425, 430, and 795. And the cases under consideration page does have the updated version that has all of those in there. So when it comes time to send it to your, review by your landscaping people, make sure to send them all 3 sections.
Okay. And on that, I think we can kind of roll right into item 14, case 2115, Ryan, the new landscaping details.
Yeah, I think it's the same. Still waiting on comments, haven't received those. We'd like to make sure you get those out to those in your agencies, municipalities that need to review them and look for comments. And this will most likely get carried over as we try to address comments and get those back. I'm not aware of any changes in that one.
Okay, no, perfect. Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up, was the carryover. So sounds good. Sounds good. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Not hearing any. Item number 15, potential cases for 2022. Looks like we got a sidewalk cross slope calculations. Gordon.
Yeah, this is Carl. We had my inspection supervisor asked me to look at MAG, because right now our detail MAG detail 230, all it says is the sidewalk is going to be 1.5% slope towards the street, and there's nothing about tolerances or variations, and inspectors can interpret that very literally, and if they get a slope that does not does not meet or come in at 1.5% slope, they have been rejecting it. And with, of course, with some objections from the contractor developer groups. So I took a look at it, and I do know in MAG 340.3.9, they talk about tolerances. And I actually went back a few years. It actually, the tolerance actually was what at one point was defined as a grade, or maybe as an elevation difference. But now it's just a tolerance. It can be 1/2 inch off from what the plan is. So I did a theoretical sidewalk with the curb being held solid, but as you went away from the curb, you could be 1/2 inch high or low, depending on how wide your sidewalk is. And I did a sidewalk for 4 foot, 5 foot, 6, 8, and 10 foot with the results down below. And with that 1/2 inch variation, the minimum slopes can go somewhere from 0.45% to 1.08%, depending on how far, how wide the sidewalk is. And the maximum, if you allow the 1/2 inch difference as a maximum slope, you would be in most cases exceeding, except for the 10 foot, exceeding that 2%, which is in excess of the ADA cross slope. So based on this, our inspectors now are given a range of acceptance for sidewalk cross slope, and they're using a 0.5% as a minimum and up to the 2% as a maximum. And what I heard is that this may be coming to our group from the industry, to come up with a tolerance. So I just wanted to. I don't expect to make it a case. It's going to go anywhere this year, but something we can discuss next year. So I just wanted to throw it out and see if there's any questions on it, and probably something we'll bring up and make a case for next year.
Okay. So if I'm understanding correctly, what you're saying is for a cross slope, if you have plus a 1/2 inch on the elevation side, you exceed the 2%. But if you're decreasing elevation at the back of sidewalk, your tolerance of 0.5% or 1/2 inch, I'm sorry, then we're good. Is that, did I say that correct?
Yeah. It's like, it's like reading the tolerances and being off by 1/2 inch of whatever the design elevation was. This is what you get depending on the width of sidewalk. And of course, this is sidewalk. I already did sidewalk based on it being held, being held at one end. And my experience with sidewalk that's not against the curb is you get variations in settlement and swell and shrink and so forth. You're never going to end up exactly, and especially in time, with an exact 1.5% slope. So we're kind of looking to get some discussion going on. What is an acceptable cross slope, a range, to accept when we accept the sidewalk after it's been constructed.
Okay, no, sounds good.
So do those tolerances need to be decreased? I mean, obviously they do, because you're over 2%, but what would be a good tolerance?
Well, like I said, what we came up with for our inspectors to use at this point in time would be, you can have a cross slope down to 0.5% or up to less than 2%, I guess would be the range of a cross slope for sidewalk.
Yeah, we kind of did the same thing in the ADA working group when we were working on ramps a few years ago. And we noted the max cross slope not to exceed 2%. So
Yes.
I think we could probably work that language in there somehow. Maybe throw a number tolerance in there, but also a not to exceed.
Yeah, I think everybody accepts that you absolutely cannot be more than 2%. You violate ADA and you got to take it out and redo it. But it's going the other direction. We have inspectors that are interpreting literally, and hey, you're less than 1.5%. Tear it out. And redo it. And I think that there should be some leeway. We feel there should be some leeway for a minimum. Let's say cross slope on sidewalk.
Right. Yeah, I think definitely it's something we could discuss next month or next year. Sorry.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a specification update. But since we're talking about it right now, I'm just going to throw out, I like a 0.5% tolerance either way. So 1 to 2. That's my thought.
Okay. I think
otherwise they'll cheat it down to the 1% to give them more tolerance on the upside.
Well, yeah. Another thing too. I mean, you do want the slope there. You do want to shed the water off the sidewalk, and you could get into some problems with it with a detached sidewalk too. So I think you're probably right. You probably want to maybe give it a tolerance, but have some discussions of what we think will work.
Yeah, no, definitely something that sounds like it's needed. So, but thank you, Carl.
Okay.
Next item was section 16 waterline construction, outdated pipe gaskets. You want to touch on this, Gordon or Jim? I think
I initially received an email just through the MAG website, and he noticed that in section 610, it's referring to Johns Mansfield gaskets, which we don't want brand names in there anyway, but this doesn't exist. And so we don't know what gasket it should be or what specification it should refer to.
yes, I remember now. Yeah. Yeah, and I actually I got into the ASTM and tried to drill down into what some of the requirements are that are on the Johns Mansfield gasket that's currently specified. And yeah, I kind of struggled a little bit on that. So this is something I think we could talk about as a committee and as a group and in the working group, at least right now, and see if we can't get a direction.
And just as a general note, if you do see as you're going through the specs on any project, some brand name or some obsolete manufacturer, let's try and correct it.
Yes. So does anybody have any other potential cases for 2022? Not hearing anything. Moving on to item number 16, working group reports. Water sewer, Jim, are you still on?
Yeah, we just talked about the cases pretty much. Good, again, it was a good discussion. Our next, I do want to meet on the 4th Tuesday, I think, because we got 5 Tuesdays in August. So
What day is that?
the 24th Tuesday.
24th.
So we can start winding down, guys. One of the new cases I'd like to look at next year is the manholes, large diameter manholes. Well, we're doing a lot of work on some of our large diameter manholes. We got development tying into them, and really the MAG details don't address like set over manholes and that type of thing. So we really should develop a spec or in a detail for a set over type manhole. and large diameter pipes.
You're talking like the doghouse style?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
because it's kind of unique because you're building over an existing line. So
Hmm.
I think Mag should have a detail on that.
So. Okay.
Other than that, like I said, we'll see everybody on the 24th.
Okay. So asphalt, concrete, Greg, Brian, Jeff?
There was no meeting, so there are no minutes.
No meeting, no minutes. Makes it easy.
There will not be a meeting this month.
Okay. So sounds like a plan. Moving on to outside right away. Peter?
Yeah, so and I do need to apologize. I'm glad that somebody got at least the meeting agenda and notes put together. It definitely wasn't me on this one. It was probably a combination of Gordon and Ann putting this together. I think we covered kind of the areas that we've been talking about. I want to just jump down to next year's cases or where we're moving. And in terms of that, that would be the landscaping area primarily. That right now the subgroup is working on the irrigation details and modifications of the standards. So that still is a continuing effort, knowing that the goal is to have those ready for January to present. And it'll keep us, I think, moving forward on those ones. Keith Kesty has volunteered to help me with the detention tanks. So we're going to get that one rolling sometime in the next few months. Once we get a few of these other ones out of the way. So our plan is to continue working through the fall and get ready for a January presentation, or January, February, start bringing in some of those details and those revisions.
Okay, sounds good.
On a separate note, outside of this group, I have been requested by a client to revisit the dust palliatives, dust control agent ones. So I was wanting to know if there would be interest in looking at products and looking at a review of the existing MAG standard on that.
You're talking the materials or the spec itself?
The spec itself.
The spec itself, okay.
Because we haven't revisited that one in a number of years.
It'd be a tough one, Peter, without getting into different brands.
Well, yeah, and I'm not sure how much, but we've been asked to look at that and see if anything has changed in the market. Have there been different types of products? Not as much specific product names, but are there new types? Have certain types just gone out of favor? They're not really available. Looking at the local market to see what really is available. So like I said, we're going to be asked to do that for somebody else. I'm just offering, would that be something that Mag would be interested in to maybe just give you an update on our findings?
Yeah, I think that would be good, especially if the current standards might change.
Yeah, and again, we haven't even started looking at it yet. So it came up very recently, and I said, well, I'm going to offer it this way too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good.
Okay.
Good.
Hey, Peter, where's the dry wells and backflow preventers on your list?
Probably dry wells are after the detention basins. The backflow preventers, I'm probably gonna need some help on that one. I'll have to recruit somebody to help me on that. The folks that we have right now probably aren't the most attuned on that one because they're more in the landscaping or the architectural end. So I may have to come back to you guys and the water and sewer working group to get some help on that.
Yeah, because we'll need some water quality people there.
Yeah, and I don't have those folks. I mean, but definitely want to take that on, but I'll probably have to just integrate with you guys on that one.
All right.
Okay.
Well, we appreciate it, Peter. I know that this year you guys have got a ton of stuff done, so
We'll keep it up. We got plenty of people to throw at stuff now.
we appreciate the hard work. So
yeah, you guys hit your stride now.
Yeah.
I got to just find time to help with that. They're moving past me quickly.
So, before we know it, we're gonna have a separate out of right-of-way book. So,
Peter, just, I know there's been interest with this table that we've done for the utility testing. There's a lot of interest from other agencies about doing something similar for aprons and driveways and ADA ramps. So may take you up on your offer
Yeah.
for some help.
Throw things at me. We'll see what happens. Everybody else is, we can do it.
Okay. Yeah, it may be a matter of compiling what different cities do and different agencies do and doing the same thing, kind of doing an average and finding what a good frequency would be, testing frequency for different assets.
I like the idea.
Yeah, if you have people that want to gather data, that would be great.
so
Yeah, thanks.
right on. All right. Moving on, item number 17, general discussion. I don't have anything other than, I believe, one more meeting after this, Gordon, or we're going to go into September.
Definitely the meeting next month, and then you can decide at that point if an October meeting is warranted.
Okay. Other than that, I don't have anything. Anybody else have anything that's outstanding that they want to talk about?
One good thing about the virtual though, if we did need an October meeting, it would kind of be painless anyways.
A little less painless, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, everybody, not hearing any other options, any other items, I would go for adjournment. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Take care.
Have a great week.
Bye.